good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on when you are in the world. Welcome to the VOA community here on the Academy, and welcome to our MMS highlights session. Basically recapping a bit of the conference that were taking place last week. And Andrew, before we get going, we'd like to say a few words about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for joining. My name's Andrew Johnson. I've been in the systems management space for a little while here and been enjoying doing things like this, being part of the community, heading up to MMS and being able to present to some of the familiar names I actually see here in the list. So that's awesome to see. That's a little bit about me. I'm still recovering from MMS. It's
You're telling me there were some gifts given.
Definitely some gifts given. Catching up on sleep, catching up on not being sick. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm happy to be here this morning.
Beautiful. It's good to see you back on track also. So nice. Myself, I'm Johan Arvidmark, have a very similar background to Andrew. I unfortunately didn't make MMS this year, at least not in person, but we were able to figure a few virtual sessions out throughout the conference, thanks to the remarkable teamwork of the audio and video team over at the conference. So we could actually go ahead and deliver one of our sessions live, but the speakers being on different places. That was pretty cool. I'm so happy it worked.
Yeah, me too. It went off without a hitch. I mean, that team really came together.
Yeah. Anywho, we absolutely love questions, always. So if you have any questions throughout this webinar, please use the Q&A function. It should be active in this call, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And speaking of the conference itself, for those that have never been to an MMS conference, it's quite unique in the way the sessions are, or the formats are for the sessions. So first of all, they are longer than your typical, Tech at Ignite type session. They are 1 hour and 45 minutes long. And we as speakers, we get instructions to, all right, prepare at least 1 hour of content, but also make sure there is about 45 minutes in Q&A available through the session. Now, Andrew and I, together with let's say half of the speakers, we like to take questions as we go along. Other speakers, they have the session first and then the Q&A in the end. But there is the point here is it's intended to have an in-depth discussion throughout the conference. So it's very, very valuable. So these are the regular breakout sessions, interactive sessions, whatever name you put to them. Then MMS also has like a themed session for the conference. And this year it was fishing. We have all sorts of themes throughout the years, but fishing was this one. Every speaker got their vest and their hat and whatnot. But fishing sessions is where you have 20 minutes that you book with a couple of the speakers just to discuss something that's on your mind. Really good, small group discussions. Sometimes it's like 3 people in that group. Sometimes it's 8. Crowded in often a small area, but it's fun. And then, of course, we have the happy hour sessions, the evening sessions are either sponsored by a sponsor or just organized by the conference itself, but they're often in the large room. Seriously fun to attend. Did I have any Jeopardy this year, Andrew?
No Jeopardy. A couple of the major milestones were not there this year, unfortunately. Of sessions.
Yeah, I know Kent wasn't joining this year either. I haven't asked him why yet. He's usually the one that leads Jeopardy, but that was always one of my highlight sessions, having that live Q&A or competition with like 700 people. And I think that's worth mentioning about the conference also. Conference runs 2 times a year, and the main event is always in May. It's always in the Mall of America in Minneapolis. And usually we see around 700 people attending, all in all. Then there are the fall sessions also. So if you go up to the MMS website, you will find that there is a themed session this year. It's up in Nashville in October, usually a day shorter than the big one, but fantastic content as well, as usually capped around half of the amount of attendees. So typically around 350 attendees for the fall sessions, but nonetheless, great content, great speakers. Now, this year, in terms of like key session topics, this was it. A lot of focus, of course, on security scripting and the systems management stack that we have in the cloud, but there were still a good chunk of what I consider old school content presented. I mean, in config manager content. And that's always been like the core to the MMS conference. That it's focusing on the main platforms that Microsoft offers, bundled up with a good chunk of real world experience, real world knowledge. People coming in to present, okay, this is how we use it in the real world, which I absolutely love. That's what tech it used to be good at back in the days, and then Microsoft Ignite kind of, I wouldn't say killed it, but they lowered that and basically replaced it with sales presentation, which is good if you're interested in a roadmap type learning. But if you actually have a job to do and need to troubleshoot something, this is the conference to attend. Absolutely. And speaking of troubleshooting, I know you, Andrew, you actually attended a couple of the troubleshooting sessions, and anything that like stood out to you?
Yeah, there were a couple. Specifically, let me see if I can find this one real quick. Jorgen and Sandy did a fantastic troubleshooting tips for Intune clients. So I can actually, you want me to steal the screen here for a few moments, Johan?
Knock yourself out.
All right. This way I can at least show the session description and whatnot. Ooh, let me shift this over a little bit. There we go.
That right. Looks good to me. Yep.
Trying to remember how to share screen over here. So Jorgen and Sandy had a fantastic troubleshooting session here, kind of standard tips around what we can do if we're having issues with our Intune clients, which, spoiler alert, you will have issues with your Intune clients, whether that's enrollment or policy conflicts or profiles, applications not actually showing up on the device. This was a fantastic session here. You can see, this might be a great time to point out, you can see that I'm logged in right now, so I actually see the content as part of these sessions. So if I click on this, I can actually load the PowerPoint presentation. But here in the coming weeks, even if you were not able to attend MMS, this content will actually become available. Right now, you have to have a login and you had to have attended the conference, but eventually these PowerPoint slides will become available. And in the case of Jorgen and Sandy's session here, you can see there is plenty of content available in the PowerShell slides without having to attend.
PowerShell slides.
PowerPoint slides. Thank you, sir. Good catch. Mm-hmm. But fantastic stuff here. So this was one of them. The other was a hacking autopilot. I think it was called. Yes, hacking Windows Autopilot with Michael Niehaus and Rudy Ooms. Two people that know Autopilot extremely well, I would say. Would you agree with that, Johan?
If you pick two people in the world that knows the most about Autopilot, they will snatch spot 1 and 2.
Absolutely. So this was another fantastic one. And I think they may have actually had, yes, this was actually, wasn't hacking. That was a great session, but they actually did have an autopilot troubleshooting session specifically. That's the one I meant to mention. And as part of this, Mike had released a new version of the community Get Autopilot Diagnostics script right before this conference. So he was able to go through some of those and some additional, some of those updates for that script, and some other tricks and tools that you could use to get through autopilot troubleshooting. So some fantastic stuff here as well. Those were two standouts in the troubleshooting area. And there were some other great troubleshooting sessions too, I'm sure. Unfortunately, you only have so much time in the day for all of the sessions that actually show up during the conference. You can see we've got about 6 per session slot. So you have to choose wisely.
Yeah, but the thing is, obviously you have to be in person to attend these sessions. That's always been the gist of MMS since the community took over it back in 2014. It used to be Microsoft conference earlier on, but the community did take over it about a decade ago. The sessions and scripts, etc., all the slides are available for attendees that even didn't attend that particular session. And there is always that, like, I wouldn't say lazy admin, but effective admin that figures out a way to script the download like in one go. So you don't have to click through 200 plus sessions and like click download, wait, next session, click download, wait, and then hope you don't miss one. But this session here that Andrew put together, that must have been almost 10 years ago also, 6 years ago, actually. I see our archive there.
Yeah.
This, if you have a registered user for the conference, you can use this script to download all slides and everything, all the sample files in one single go. Usually generates about 1 gig of content in the download folder, but heck, it's a great way if you just want to go ahead and review stuff from the conference. And something I recommend also is that if you have a couple of sessions and you don't really know which one to start with, because the abstract only gives you so much information, you can actually take a PowerPoint, just upload it to ChatGPT or whatever platform you happen to like and say, hey, give me a summary, give me the gist, give me the high-level overview of what's covered in this session. And you get like a 2-page paper that will explain to you, okay, what's going on in this session really. So basically go beyond the abstract a little bit. And I like that to get a summary. If I have basically way more sessions to consume, then I have time to read them through them all. Because even though I'm a pretty quick reader, a couple of hundred sessions, it adds up quickly to the hours of the day. So forgot when they added that in, but at least a year ago, if you go to ChatGPT, you just go ahead and upload a PowerPoint and say, hey, summarize this, or let me know what you think about this and what other sessions are matching this. AI is pretty shiny these days.
Yeah, it's a great tip.
All right. Do you guys have any questions at this point? We love questions.
Greg just had a question here in the Q&A. Do you know if this script will work for unregistered users once they are made publicly available? Yes, it will. So what we do, actually, if I go into the script itself here, down here towards the bottom, we have basically set up which conference is available, or which conference has publicly available content. So you can see it's almost every single one that's passed already. So typically, and take this with a grain of salt, I don't have any inside information or anything on when they're going to do this, but typically about a month or so after the conference ends, the content gets opened up to the community. And at that point, then we typically try to change this over. And then it will become available to anybody running it. And you won't have to actually log in to download that content.
You happen to know why the content from 2018 never made it? public? I just realized.
I don't know, and I've never asked.
Yeah, might be obsolete by now, but all right, I was curious. It's
Yeah.
curious.
I'm guessing it was just missed or something like that.
Yeah.
But we did. I can talk a little bit about just how the week was in general. I mean, it was good because it's always good, but being up there was interesting. I'll talk a little bit about my experience just because it was a unique one this year, to say the least. So these were the sessions that I was scheduled to present on this year. So had 2 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday, and then 1 on Wednesday. A couple of different types, mostly those interactive sessions that Johan was mentioning, but also a couple of happy hour sessions. And of course, most of these this year were 4 out of 5 were with Johan originally. And I unfortunately received a text about 15 minutes before landing in Minneapolis that there was a chance that Johan was not going to be making it this week. And
yeah, he may have bailed out on you last minute there.
no, it happens. But the coolest thing about this, and I've told this story in a couple of different venues last week, in a couple of different areas. The coolest thing about this, if any of you have listened to Johan and I for just a couple of sessions, we talk often about how great the community is. And not too long after landing and getting into the mall, everybody's first question was, how is Amy doing? Is she okay? And everyone's second question was, what can we do to help you, Andrew? And sure enough, within, I would say, an hour, we had Michael Niehaus joining, had offered to join our Windows Autopilot session as Johan, basically. I could not have asked for a better alternative to Johan, though I would have loved to have been up there with you, sir. Having Mike Niehaus up there talking about autopilot was fantastic. And Jan Kettle joined me for our Intune Management with Graph session. And Jan also, we have Jan join us for our Intune Masterclass here on the Academy. And he's one of 2, along with Sandy Zhang, who talk about Graph as part of that class. So again, I couldn't have asked for a better co-presenter there. And he and I that was our first time presenting together. And it just worked, which was fantastic. Again, as you mentioned, Johan, we had it worked out that this 8 a.m. session over mastering app deployment with Intune, we were able to get you in. We had fantastic 2-way audio. We had we had people in the room asking questions. You being able to respond was just fantastic. I was a little nervous about that one because that was an 8 a.m. after the Patch My PC famously has a welcome party on Monday night. So 8 a.m. the next day, I knew that was going to be tough to get anyone in to co-present. And we had a full session. We had 200 people in that room talking about the application lifecycle. And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And last but not least, outside of the interactive sessions, again, we had these happy hour sessions. So Nate Zienert and I put together a session on how you can self-host certain applications. Like we talked a little bit about how you would install Docker, how you would install and configure a reverse proxy, and then some other applications you can stand up with self-hosting. We had some examples on dashboards, as well as a recipe application, which is fantastic. It's a self-hosted application called Mealy that will actually if any of you have gone and gotten a recipe off the internet after the last couple of years, you'll notice that there's about 4 pages of, you know, everyone's life story before you get to the recipe, and that application will cut all that out. Anyways, fantastic, hilarious session. Folks said we had good content, so I think that's a good thing. And of course, we were able to do office hours live, which was, it was really interesting because we're normally in 2 different locations. But this time I had the audience with me while you were up on the screen.
Well, you got your steps in that day, so that counts for something, because you had to run around with the microphone throughout the room.
Exactly. But beyond that, of course, the week was full of fantastic networking. As I said, I recognize a couple of names here in the chat today. You know, you meet a lot of old friends that you might get to only see once a year or once every couple of years. We're not so fortunate to be up there every single year. Got to meet a lot of new friends, talk about challenges. That's one of my favorite things, and I think that you would probably agree, Johan, is the hallway conversations, the conversations at the restaurant/bar at the hotel later in the evening after the conference is over. Honestly, problems get solved there. Ideas get created and formed there, and absolutely one of my favorite parts of the conference, hands down.
Do you mind if I steal the screen a little bit from you?
Oh, please go ahead.
All right. So in addition to Andrew, I was also intended to speak with Mr. Mike Terrell, that I work with a lot these days, but we were, and can you see this, by the way?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah. So our intention was to do a repeat or our upgrading to Windows 11 session that we did last year, because last year when we did that session, we had to do a repeat because it was so popular. But we had a couple of 100 people in the room each time, and we asked them, how ready are you with Windows 11? How many are done with like 75% of your migration? And in total, out of those several hundred people, like 7 raised their hands, like, okay, we probably need to do this one again. And we did, and it was still, Morris Daly jumped in to cover my part through the session. But something that I think stand out from it that I wanted to just mention here is that we are only a couple of months away now from Windows 10 being end of life. And at that point, you have the normal versions, I should say, not the long-term servicing ones. They are special. But at that point, you have 2 options. Either you upgrade into Windows 11, and typically 23H2 is the version is that most organizations are using today, because that's the most stable one. 24H2 still have a few quirks that need to be ironed out for some organizations, or you have to pay for updates. So one of our customers I was talking to just a little while back, they have several 100,000 devices. There was no way they would be able to upgrade them all in a timely fashion. It was simply it took too long. So they decided on actually buying extended licenses for a few of them. And by a few of them, I mean tens of thousands of devices, but you know, in comparison, a few. So this is basically the options you have, and it's not too terrible. For organizations, it's about $60 for another year per device for like a private company. But if you're a nonprofit organizations or education or stuff like that, you can often get that price down significantly. I think education is still offered either free or like a $1 per client type license offer per year.
It is. The unfortunate part, though, is in year 2, it doubles to $2.
Yeah, but still, if you compare that to buy a $1,200 computer, well, $2 is, you know, more reasonable.
Yes, absolutely.
I keep thinking of it. I mean, a device that you bought, say, 6, 7 years ago, that may not have the Windows 11 specification, or even older devices, they are still good machines. And why not pay for another year or two of updates, so at least you can keep them secure. No. So anyway, that was a little gist of that conversation there. But other than that, if you're not on that wagon just yet, make sure to upgrade. We do recommend to keep enterprise in education, simply because it gives you that longer cycle for testing and for. So, for example, now there is a 24H2 release that is not the greatest release Microsoft put together, but you can skip it. You have time to skip it, because 23H2 is going to be supported for a good while longer. So there is no like immediate need to upgrade right now. However, if you are on a pro license and you're on 23H2, well, 23 was the year it was released. So 24 months from that period would be, oh yeah, this year. So anywho, one little rant there. Any questions at all from you guys on Windows 11 upgrades, or just your thoughts, your sense on the topic? See any questions coming in? All right then. The other session Andrew and I worked on, and that's the one we ended up presenting on Tuesday morning there, was our ideas on basically the best way to deal with application lifecycle management when using Intune for it. So this is obviously the agenda for that session, where we discussed everything from how to keep your source structure reasonable, make sure you have backup for that source structure so you can recreate stuff if needed, and how to do testing and standardize on different types of ways to create applications. And something that we added in quite late to the presentation when preparing for it was the new version of PSADT. So for those of you who haven't seen it, our friends over at Patch My PC, they went in and basically added resources to the already existing team for PS App Deployment Toolkit, which is one of the best wrappers you will ever find, not just for Intune applications, but also for config manager applications or any type of applications. What it really is, it's a couple of compiled binaries together with PowerShell scripts that allow you to have a very standardized way of working with applications. And through the Patch My PC help, organizations that require support, they can now buy that support from Patch My PC. The solution itself is free, always has been, always will be, but at least according to Patch My PC. But you can pay for support if needed, because some organizations, they simply have a policy that you actually need this to get going. But I did prepare a client here, one of my trustworthy Chicago One clients, which you can clearly see does not have VLC installed because I just yanked it. But if I go to my demo folder here, this was the demo I was showing. This is what a package looks like when using PSADT. So you have the components that comes with the kit, and you install a PowerShell module to create this template. And that module is available on PowerShell Gallery. And then you have a PowerShell script that drives the process. And then you have a couple of folders where you have either just the setup files, in this case VLC. I'm keeping that in the file section. See if I can get zoom it going on this one. In that folder there. If you have supported files, you will put them in the support folder. So I have that one here as a shortcut. And then in that script, this one here, this is where you add your own logic for the installer. So for example, if I search for Win64XE, which is the name of the VLC installer, you will see that I have added a line in the script here to say, you know what, start ADT process, run that executable, and throw in these arguments for it. And if you're new to PS-ADT, this is basically where one of the core pieces are. There are so many ready-made methods for launching different types of installers, like MSI packages. It even understands Vim files these days. And if there are any stuff that needs to happen after install, you'll put them here. Here is why I was adding that shortcut that I mentioned earlier. But long story short, you enable what UI you want enable, or you can configure how to interact with existing processes and whatnot. But long story short, if you run this from config-man, you're in Intune, it's basically going to look like this. In this case, I did enable the UI. So in a few seconds here, it's going to realize, okay, there is a application to install because I removed it from that system. And here we have it. This progress bar is coming from PS-ADT itself. There is also integration with Service UI, so you can run it from sequences and still have something showing up. Yeah, this is just a great wrapper to create a standardized ways of dealing with applications. So that's something that we see organizations are doing, and something we also discussed throughout the course or throughout the session. Just waiting for this one to finish up. Is to have different kinds of wrappers for logging. See where I put that example. Wrapper scripts, that sounds reasonable. Where you basically have a logging function that you add to your script, or you leverage the one that comes with PS-ADT, and then you specify a folder structure for them. So basically every application you have, you're making sure that it logs to a specific folder. Because when you deploy apps from Intune, you only get so much logging available from the Intune logs, from the IME agent on the devices. They won't get you all the details. And for example, if you have MSI files, you can ask MSI to do verbose logging for you. So something I really like is to have a folder structure available where the log files for each application are deployed are there that I can use for troubleshooting. Because the downside with Intune and to some extent Config Manager, unless you do some logging, you're basically flying blind. You will get the happiness or failure in the end, but okay, why did it fail? That's why we have the log files. So out of that little summary I showed you earlier here, focus on logging for troubleshooting, and of course setting up your testing purposes and whatnot. That's like one of the key aspects of making that better. Any questions, comments at all related to this? I mean, we can talk about this for hours. We don't have hours, but we could.
No doubt. We did have a question here in the Q&A, not about apps, but about 24H2. What are the reasons that you say 24H2 is not one of the good Windows 11 builds? What are the downsides and issues with it?
Oh, I am happy that you asked.
I saw quite a lively discussion on Twitter about this the other day.
Yeah, it's been running for, I like to say 2 months, discussions on both Reddit and Twitter or X. But when I worked with Mike and preparing for this, we did put up a slide somewhere. Maybe not there. Give me a moment. Dang it. Primarily, we've seen reports on application compatibility and also drivers and like hard-related stuff, printer scanners. See what else, sysprep issues.
Yeah, so it's interesting too. I'm trying to find Mike's reply to it, but they're, I've even said in another venue with you, Johan, like we've rolled out 24H2 fairly broadly and have not seen any issues. And when I've said that, it's like, oh, really? It's surprising, right? And I know somebody in that thread mentioned something similar, where you have organizations that have rolled it out and they've been fortunate enough or lucky enough, I guess, that they haven't had any issues, but it's simply because they haven't happened to have those couple of applications that were being used or those couple of drivers that are being used that are having issues. What's the big one? Was there a Realtek driver?
Yeah, I actually found the slide that we were working on. This took me a little bit to get to it. See what I can do here. Let's do it this way. How hard can it be to do a copy paste? Here we go. So this was what we had gathered from the community and what we have seen in terms of 24H2 issues listed here. And we also had a link to the actual Reddit thread that kind of sparked this. So if I minimize that a little bit, I should be able to paste that one in and go to that Reddit thread. But basically, it was a fairly long discussion around it. I recommend reading up on that one. Interesting was that if you have upgraded to the April patch, you couldn't even upgrade to 24H2 from 23H2 in certain scenarios. It appears that it's been fixed now in the patch that was released Tuesday this week, the May CU. But still, 24H2 is simply not the best release for Windows 11. If it works for you, for that's the stuff that you have, fantastic. Otherwise, we recommend organization to stick with 23H2 for now until these issues are resolved. 25H2 has already been documented is going to be an enablement package for 24H2. So the thing is, if you have an issue with 24H2, you probably will have that with 25H2 also, since they're sharing the same servicing stack. But we'll see. Hopefully Microsoft will get this one figured out so we can leverage that platform. But great question. Thank you.
Just a follow-up question here in the Q&A. Have these issues been on just upgrades or fresh installations as well?
We've seen them on both, but most issues has actually been on upgrades. I was reading it was a thread from Adam Gross. He works for a large chemical company, and they use Excel like a lot. They were having issues with Excel plugins, but only on machines that were upgraded. It was like, okay, what's the difference? So, but in general, there are issues on both platforms, but most of the issues has been on upgraded devices. But the thing is, if you do run into issues, you can always downgrade. If it was an upgrade, you can revert. You have 10 days by default. Or you can just re-image the device into that old version, 23H2. I know some organizations have, instead of troubleshooting for too long, they have just put them back to where they were until they have time to fix it. But now, great questions. Love it. Anything else out there? I don't see anything else, but everyone, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you, Andrew, for joining as well. And well, we are coming together every Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Central Time for office hours. So please join us there. And other than that, maybe we'll see each other on another conference at some point. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, Johan, and thank you everybody for joining today.